Hey guys, Martin here. Another episode of We're Still Here, and in this one, I'm going to talk about something that makes me happy, which I haven't done in a while. It actually doesn't make me happy, though. It does, because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the comic that I'm about to talk about, but at the same time, it's a very dismal and depressing comic, so it's not necessarily something that brightened my spirits, but it helped me deal with a few feelings that I was experiencing and still experience. So here's something that makes me happy, in a sense. I saw a post on Reddit about a film that was greenlit, or at least had a director attached to it. And if you can hear my dog running around, I apologize. But it was a film based on the comic Irredeemable from, I believe, Boom Publishers, I think is their name. And Adam McKay was just attached to direct it, and he's the director of like Anchorman and The Big Short, so he has a very diverse filmography, and I'm very interested to see where he goes next as a filmmaker. But the concept behind the comic that he's adapting really interested me. It was, I mean, as a concept alone, it's great. Irredeemable is the name of the series, and some of you, I'm sure, have read it already, but it's a comic about Superman. Not really Superman. It's a character that essentially represents a person with the powers of Superman snaps one day. Like, the pressure gets to him, because he has a job that is all-consuming. 24/7. He's basically planet Earth's, policeman, and the pressure of his job and the demands get to him, and he just breaks one day and decides, okay, you know what? Screw it. You're all dead. If you get in my way, and I'm going to basically rule this place with an iron fist, and you're all going to be terrified of me because, well, it's a long story. It's not even a long story. It's a bit of a convoluted story, but it's really, like, just interesting to me, the idea of somebody who is like a paragon, just one day just turning and becoming this terrifying force, this basically a dictator. A completely unpredictable, somebody who can hear everything you're saying from across the planet. Imagine if that person decided that he was going to go on a rampage and kill anything that questioned him. Imagine if that happened. That's terrifying. And that's what drew me to the comic, but what kept me reading was this interesting humanization of the superhero figure, sort of the way Watchmen turned the superhero genre as a whole on its head. This takes the idea of a Superman and asks, what if, he actually broke under the pressure of his role. And the thing that really grabbed me was how much I identified with him. And his name is the Plutonian. He's not actually from Pluto, but that's his name. And they call him Tony for short. And I found myself, in at least the very first several issues of the comic, identifying with him a remarkable amount. Partly due to, a lot of the things I talk about in this series, which is depression and stress and anxiety. And he has all those things. He's a broken person who has this huge responsibility thrust upon him. And he struggles with it, and he eventually breaks despite putting on a facade. Whenever people see him, they're like, oh, he's the best person in the world. He's flawless. He's perfect, morally unquestionable. And that is who is perceived to be, and who he tries to be. He pretends to be this flawless character. There's a series of events that happen that cause him to lose control, of what is an enormous amount of power. But a lot of what it is pretty ordinary stuff that gets to him. Like it's just the demands that people make, because he's constantly hearing these voices of actual people, being like, please help me, I need your help, I'm going to die, I'm in huge danger, please somebody save me. He's hearing all of that even while he's saving people. Even while he's in the process of fixing a problem, he's hearing a billion other problems happening at the same time. So I can identify with that, and I'm sure a lot of you can, because with me, and this is just how I relate to it, when I'm doing something that isn't writing a video or editing a video or voicing or just thinking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged or any of the projects I work on, when I'm doing something that isn't that, I hear essentially people complaining. You know, I can visualize it. I can feel people, you know, being like, why are you doing this when you could be doing the thing that I need you to do? And there's a scene where the Plutonian, he kind of he feels a lot of pressure from, you know, the government and from, you know, the scientists of the world who believe that he's holding alien technology from, you know, us, from humans. And they're like, well, you're just hoarding this for yourself and you're keeping us under your foot. You know, you're trying to make sure that, you know, you are the supreme being, and we mortals have to, you know, basically beg for your help when we could be on your same level if you just shared some of this power with us. And there are people who complain and treat him like he's, you know, the anti version of what he actually is trying to be. They're like, he's actually a villain because he's not helping us the way he should be helping us, which is to help us help ourselves. And he cracks because he actually goes to one of these people who's complaining about him all the time and says, look, if I help you out, it has to be for the greater good. And you can't tell anybody that I helped you to do this, because then everybody's going to think that if you complain about me, then I'll come and I'll react to it. And when I watched that, I'm like, that's like listening to the YouTube comments, you know? That's like somebody who saw, who even though there's a million people praising you, you listen to the one person who had something negative to say, and you let that like control you and dictate your actions, and you can't do that. And that's one of the things that ends up driving him to break, is the fact that he had to do that. And then it's a long series of real problems that real people have that cause him to become this, you know, destructive force, this, you know, this cruel oppressor that he ends up being. The first issue, I believe it's in, there's a series of frames that I'm going to post in the video so you can see. There's a sequence where he saves a stadium full of people from, I think it's a giant robot with a bomb or something. It's been a while since I read it. But he goes and he saves the stadium full of people, and everybody, it's a perfect visual representation of what I'm talking about. The stadium full of people are cheering for him and saying, we'd be dead without him. You know, he's our savior. Thank you so much for doing this. And that's what they're all saying. And then he hears one person be like, well, that guy's just a show-off. What a dick, you know? And his face sinks. It changes. He's like beaming proudly, and then he's like, oh, God. He's heard this guy complaining about him, and that's all he hears at that point. You know, that's all that matters. That changes his view of everything that he's done and everything that he is. And I feel that a lot. You know, I feel that. And it was great to see somebody... I ultimately, the comic kind of goes off the rails about halfway through its run. I hate to say it. I recommend reading it, but I don't recommend it being quality throughout. I'm glad that I read it, because it was good to see somebody who... Superman, you know? It was essentially Superman feel and fall to these feelings. You know, it was interesting to see, because if I had the kind of power that Superman has, I probably would lash out the way that the Plutonian did as well, you know, because hell if I know, I wouldn't be able to handle it. And it's really nice to see, even though it's not nice, it helps to see somebody with that much power who should be infallible dealing with something that, you know, when I feel it, I feel like I must be the lowest person in the world, you know, the most worthless person. But here's somebody who is the most worthy person falling to depression and falling to anxiety and falling to stress and feelings of not being good enough and everything. So it helped me. At least the first 10 issues or so, they helped me a lot. So I recommend checking it out. I really liked it. And, you know, I hope the movie's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. Time is... this isn't something that's strictly related to depression. This is something that I've experienced. I think it's more of a stress thing. And I guess that ties into depression. And I do apologize for my dog chewing on a chew toy while I'm doing this. We got her an unbreakable, indestructible toy bear, and she's doing her best to destroy it. She's ripped its foot open. I do apologize. No, Tilly, you can't have it. I've got to talk to the camera. No, go down. But yeah, what I'm going to talk about is time. And my feeling of never having enough of it. And I'm sure even people without depression deal with this. When I schedule out my week or my month, I look at it and I think, oh my gosh, I don't have any time to do the things that, I wish I could set aside for myself to do. I look at it and my time isn't my own. And that's not a bad thing often. If I were to separate myself, if I were to separate my personal feelings and my desire to be left alone and my desire to just, to do nothing, that is part of depression, is a desire to do nothing and be nothing and be left alone and be, independent of anything else, like completely separate. That is something I get from depression. But when I look at, my week that I've got ahead, I often just think, oh my goodness, I just don't have any time to get any of the stuff that I want to do done. And that's a weird feeling for me, because I've always thought of a lot of these things that I'm doing as stuff that I want to do. But then once you actually have to do it on a regular basis, it's like, oh gosh, well, I wish I could, I wish I could mix things up a bit, or I wish I could take this and just put it somewhere else so that I could do something else in this time, but I've already scheduled this time. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say, I guess, and I'm probably gonna have to cut this one a bit short. I apologize. Although I did tie a lot of what I talked about in the first half into, my feelings of depression. But what I'm trying to say ultimately is that I feel time slipping through my fingers. I feel it. It's a physical feeling that I have at times. When I'm working on something, I can feel, the time just disappearing. When I'm doing something, if I'm out with somebody, if I'm hanging out with a group of people that, I don't necessarily know that well, or even people that I do know, I'm counting down the time that I could be spending doing work. Whenever I'm doing one thing, I'm imagining the amount of time that I could be spent doing something else. I feel it. I feel when the day's over, and if I didn't get enough done, or if I didn't relax enough, I feel that time taken away from me. And I don't know if that's something related to stress or anxiety or any of that stuff. I just know that I feel it really strongly lately. Time, is something you don't get back. And maybe it's a good thing that I feel it as strongly as I do, because if time is that valuable to me, then it means that I want to do stuff with my time. And I haven't wanted that in a while. I haven't wanted anything in a long time. And now I find myself, wishing that I could go see a movie, with this time, or, like today, for example. And I'm not complaining about the fact that I have to do things, obviously, but what I'm doing is I'm going to lunch with a friend, and then we have some friends coming over to write fan fiction, and then we have people coming over for dinner. And in my head, I'm like, well, that's a lot of time devoted to other people, because I don't put myself in the equation, because I don't think of myself. And that is part of this, that is part of what I'm going through. So in my head, I'm like, well, I'm just being banded around, and like today isn't mine. That's what it feels like. It feels like today isn't mine, which it isn't. And no day is really mine. And that's okay. It's got to be okay, because you can't just live for yourself, and you can't live selfishly all the time. And there are going to be days and weeks where you don't get to dictate every minute of every hour of every day. But there are going to be days when you get to do that. They do eventually happen. Grown-up life, and I'm a man-child. I don't know if you've noticed in the years that I've been making videos, but I'm a giant baby, basically. But growing up means realizing and being okay with the fact that, your life isn't going to be everything you want it to be. And I guess I used to let myself think that was the worst thing ever. My depression used to be like, well, your life isn't your own anymore, and you're not able to make anybody else happy, so what good are you? But, That's not, just not having every hour of every day be mine and mine alone isn't the worst thing. There are worse things. There are worse things than having a busy schedule. But I feel it, I feel time disappearing. I feel myself losing time. And if I go a whole day without doing the one thing that I wanted to do, then I feel like it's been a failure, but it's not. Because there's another day, and then there's another day after that. And that's all right. And if the fact that I'm even thinking that, the fact that I'm even saying that out loud is a huge positive for me. Because I haven't thought this way. I haven't thought this way in a long time. And just talking about it makes me realize that I do feel this way. I think this way. This is my instinct. It's that there's going to be another day. And that's good. That's really good for me. So I feel pretty good right now. And just talking it out has helped. So thanks for listening.